So I am really into these new leads, and today we're going to try and make something really special with them. So we are going to make a working crane system in Minecraft, and it's going to be super cool. Okay, so the way I'm envisioning this working is we're going to use it for mining, right? So it will be something of this basis. So we'll have a boat attached like so. This is like the most primitive version of our crane. But we've got to figure out a way to get it moving and kind of acting and behaving in the way that we need it to. So what I had in mind was something like this. We would have a villager and we'd kind of take advantage of the job system to kind of like guide the villager around and then attach a boat to the villager. The problem with that is that you actually cannot attach the leads to villagers, unfortunately. It's a no. So whilst that would have been a nice system to guide the mechanism around, we're not going to be able to do it. So I think the actual better option is to use something like an LA, because these guys actually have a lot of more options, more versatile pathfinding options than most other mobs. And the good news is you can also lead them, which is really handy. So this is kind of probably going to be the basis of how this is all going to work, I think. Now, I was imagining some kind of like multi-boat setup, which does work, but there is like a slight strange behavior with it. Because boats, I think, have 2 passengers, it kind of creates like a weird offset when you like chain them together like this. So if I do this, you can see that once it all settles down, the boats actually don't go in a straight line. So if you create enough of them, it starts creating this offset. So whilst I'm here, the crane will sort of like veer off. It's not really the end of the world, but like aesthetically, I think it could look a little bit better. So for that reason, I actually quite like the idea of rabbits, because seeing as they're such a small mob and you can lead them, they don't really create much of an offset. And I just think that, yes, they are dangling rabbits, but I think it just looks better, like from an aesthetic. And it's probably a little bit functional also as well. So it kind of just stays in a nice straight line and kind of just looks a bit nicer, I think. So the plan was to use items to maneuver the alley around, because that seemed like the most obvious choice. The item would be picked up and it would sort of like attract the alley around. Kind of weird behavior though. If you go quite far from a distance, the alley will actually still try to follow you around. So if I move to the left, the alley will actually track me from quite a distance, which is actually really interesting behavior, and it's actually really useful behavior as well. Right, so I just created a little expanded runway, and as you can see, this actually works from quite the distance. So I'm a fair distance over here, but if I come down here, the alley will still track you from quite far away. And it creates this strange mechanism, this strange tracking system that will basically just follow you around. So if I'm down here, then I move over here, then the crane will track me down on the ground. So as you'll notice, the more links you add to the crane, the more chaotic it becomes down the line. So it just starts swinging around all over the place, which is kind of cool actually. It's quite fun, like the physics of it. But I kind of want to slow it down a little bit. So if we actually swap that all out for soul sand, you can see that it becomes way more stable. So if I just come over here and move over here, it still does swing around a little bit, but it's not nearly as chaotic and it's way more predictable, and it's not just flying around everywhere. Although it is perhaps a little bit too slow. So we kind of want something like a middle ground between those 2 speeds, I'd say. So I've actually found if you intersperse the soul sand with normal blocks, you kind of get like a middle ground where it's not too like jolty, but it's also not too sluggish. So if we just observe the alley, it can make some progress, but it can track you at a nice sort of average speed, which is probably the best place to be, I think. Alright, so this is the configuration that I have ended up with, but to be honest, you can just change this to your preferences. It can take any shape or form. It could just be a big long line. It's just very flexible. Alright, so let me give you an example of the crane in action. So like I said, I'm kind of envisioning this like mining and stuff. So what we have is this chested boat, and it will basically just follow us along. So wherever we go in our quarry area, let's say we're making a quarry, the boat will just track us and conveniently follow us along. So because we're using alloys, we can actually do something kind of interesting here. So I've placed these dispensers with some diamonds. Don't have to use diamonds, obviously, but we've got those there because we can actually send the alloy to specific locations. For example, let's say we want to send the alloy over here. We can just use something like a wind charge, and it will send the alloy to that specific location because it will dispense an item. He'll go get the item, and once he's got it, he's going to want to give it back to us. So he'll return to the location. But this is kind of cool because you can basically, you can put some stuff in the chest, right? Your cargo. Then you can send the cargo away. So for example, over here, we actually have like a depot area, right? So what we can actually do is once you actually filled the cargo, you can just say, okay, go over to the cargo area, right? And what he's going to do, he's going to go to the cargo area, and he'll deposit the cargo into the area, as we can see with the light, and then he'll come back to us. So that is just, I don't know, there's just something that's really satisfying about this. I think what is so neat about this is, I think throughout the history of Minecraft, I think everyone kind of always has this idea that you're going to build this big, fancy, complex rail system with minecarts and stuff, but it never really quite works. And the reason for that is because fundamentally in Minecraft, you generally dig down, like you do a quarry, you dig a big hole or something, and inevitably you're going to have to dig up the rail. So it never really works. The thing is though, is that this system is very different, and it's good because you don't actually have to tear anything down, because when you go down a level, you can basically just extend the crane to suit you. So once it gets too deep, you can just make the crane longer without having to deconstruct the entire thing. It works all the way down to the bedrock. So yeah, basically all you really would need to do is just clip it, get another link like so, like this, reattach it like so, then you can basically just make the entire thing a little bit longer. So it will just go down all the way down to bedrock with you. So this is obviously just like a rough draft, but I genuinely do think this kind of system actually is genuinely viable for mining and things if you were to set it up in a certain way. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think of this kind of system. I'm continuously impressed by what you can do with these new leads. It's a really, really fun new mechanic, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Create mod in that sort of physics kind of interacting with stuff. It's really, really impressive, and I think there's going to be so much we can do with this new feature. Either way, I hope you enjoyed. That is all we have time for today. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.